Please remember to subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell to be notified of new videos and live streams.
الله ربي والإسلام ديني ومحمدا رسول الله ويقيني.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Alhamdulillah for allowing us together in His house where inshallah we are studying the Sharia, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's laws that regulate our behavior, that grant us direction in how we are supposed to perform our ibadat, how we are supposed to be worship. We know we have to worship Allah, but now we are learning how we are supposed to worship Allah. It is not something that we make up as we go along, but it is something that is already explained to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And now we have reached Bab Tuhrul Ha'id, hadith number 99, Bab Tuhrul Ha'id, the purity of a woman after menstruation. Al-Haid, Haid is the term used to refer to the menses, to the cycle, the menstruating cycle of our women. And it is a situation which is fardu ayn for our women to know. It is an obligatory knowledge, meaning there is no excuse for it, for not knowing it. And it is, why is that so? Because our practice of our essential practice of Islam will depend on it. So knowing when your haid has entered and when it has finished will then indicate when we should stop praying and when we should resume praying for our women. Okay? So meaning that, let us say a person is praying when they are not supposed to be praying. Then they are transgressing Allah, they are transgressing the law. And if they are not praying when they're supposed to be praying, they are transgressing the law. So they need to know it. Okay, simple as that. So inshallah, over the next few weeks, we will be able to cover the issues pertaining to this topic according to the structure or the order that Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi included in his book Al-Muwatta. And last week we talked about what is permissible for a man regarding his wife when she is ha'id, when she is menstruating, and it was everything above the waist. And now we are talking about what are the signs indicating that the menses has finished. How do you know that the cycle or the menstruating has, the hukum of it has finished? Because there are situations where you are still bleeding, but the hukum, the legal ruling, is that it is no longer menses. So you have to resume your prayer, you have to do all this even though there's blood. Okay, so we have to understand these affairs. Well, our sisters have to understand it. And our men who have daughters and wives also have to understand it in order to educate them, inshallah. On that regard, هو ما قال عبيد الله بن يحيى حدثني يحيى عن مالك عن علقمة ابن أبي علقمة عن أمه مولاة عائشة أم المؤمنين رضي الله عنها أنها قالت كان النساء يبعثن إلى عائشة أم المؤمنين بالدرجة فيها الكرس فيه الصفرة من الحيضة يسألنها عن الصلاة فتقول لهن لا تعجلن حتى ترين القصة البيضاء تريد بذلك الطهر من الحيضة. Yahya related to me from Malik, from Alqama ibn Abi Alqama, that his mother, the Mawla of Aisha, the Mawla of Aisha is Murjana, rahmatullah alayhi, al-Mu'mineen, Aisha al-Mu'mineen radiallahu anha said, women used to send little boxes to Aisha al-Mu'mineen with a piece of cotton cloth in each one on which was yellowness with menstrual blood, asking her about the prayer. She said to them, do not be hasty until you see a white discharge. By that she meant purity from menses. So what is the mas'ala? What is the situation? So now you have the women in the time of the Prophet, the Sahabiyat, and those after the Prophet had passed away. They weren't sure whether or not they had finished their menses. So what did they do? What was their practice? They used to take cotton and they used to line their area and they used to check if there was any discharge. They used to check if there was anything, or they took the cotton and they wiped their area, and whatever color there was, they used to put it in a dirja. Dirja is like a small box where you would keep small items, like a jewelry box, something sort of like a jewelry box. And they used to then send that box with the cotton in it, with the coloring or the discharge, and send it to Aisha radiallahu anha. And they're asking, when can I pray? Can I pray now in this state? Right? That's the question. Because they want to know whether or not their menses is finished and they should resume their salat. And why did they send it to Aisha radiallahu anha? Because she is the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she will know these matters, right? She will know these matters. And she used to say that do not be in haste, but if she saw yellow discharge or any colored discharge on the cotton or the cotton wool or whatever it may be, wouldn't be cotton wool, cotton, she would say to them, do not be in haste until you have seen the qasat al-bayda. The qasat al-bayda is what they call the cervical discharge. It is a clear discharge with maybe a tinge of coloring, a tinge of yellow. It is largely clear with a tinge of yellow or brown, or just very light coloring. Okay, it is not. So it is, akramakumullah, similar to urine, similar, right? It's a discharge, it's a clear discharge. When that happens, then that is an indicator that the menses has finished, and thereby triggering the process of tathir, which is the ghusl, because hayd is najasat akbar. It is, or najasat kubra, it is the larger form of najasa, thereby requiring al-ghusl, the tathir, the major form of purification, which is al-ghusl. Okay. So the signs of ending the menses are three. There are three signs. One of them is qasat al-bayda. That is for the clear discharge, number one. So the coloring has finished and there is clear discharge. That is one sign. The second is jafaf, is that it is no longer any liquid coming out. Just, it's finished, it stopped. Okay? And number three is the time. That the time allotted to the menstrual cycle has expired. So, for the Jumhur, which is the Malikis, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis, that is 15 days. So meaning if 15 days have passed and the sister is still bleeding, they resume as if they are tahir. They take a shower and they pray and they do everything that you will do when you're not in hayd. Okay? 15 days. You're not allowed more than 15 days. And for the Hanafis, it's 10 days. 10 days is the full time. So anything past 10 days, even if you are still bleeding, that is not legally considered hayd for the Hanafis, and 15 days for the Jumhur. It is whatever bleeding it is for the uru. It is not legally classified as hayd, and as such does not have the rulings of hayd. Does not prevent you from salat, but you must resume salat in your standard ibadah as normal. And we will get to some of the etiquettes and some of the practices that are expected of a person if they are still bleeding outside of the menstrual period, or if it is a bleeding other than the menstrual bleeding. Okay? So 3 signs. Qasad al-bayda, the clear discharge. Number 2, jafaf, that is you've ceased bleeding. And number 3, time. 3. Okay. It's very simple, these 3 things, inshallah. The details, inshallah, we'll be answering the complications or the nuance of a person's cycle. Now, people might not see all of this. So a person, their typical, I don't know, it's not practice. Their typical experience may not be a clear discharge. Some people might not experience this. They might experience jafaf, that it just stops. Okay? So for such a person, you just wait till it stops. Other people, it will not be completely dry, but they will see the clear discharge. Okay? So it depends on whichever one of these 3, or if all of them applies to you, it applies to you. Okay. But with the time period, nobody is exempt from that. Meaning that there is a limit for everybody. A hukum, it is a ruling that would apply to every possible circumstance. And this is also an indicator of the type of awareness that the Muslims had regarding their deen. That they were concerned for their responsibility and duty to perform the rites of their religion, that they were careful to ensure that they did not delay the resumption of their prayer, nor did they nor did they expedite it, nor did they bring it forward and be hasty. Because both of them you cannot do. You cannot delay it past the required time, and you cannot bring it forward before the time is entered. It's very important to be careful regarding this. All right. To that end, Aisha radiallahu anha, regarding these matters of hygiene that are very personal and private, she says, نِعْمَ النِّسَاءُ الْأَنصَارِ لَمْ يَكُنْ يَمْنَعْهُنَّ الْحَيَاءَ أَنْ يَسْأَلْنَ عَنِ الدِّينِ وَيَتَّفَقْنَ فِيهِ. Aisha radiallahu anha says, فيما أخرج أبي داود رحمة الله عليه, she says, how blessed are they, the women of the Ansar. What an excellent example of women, right? Their sense of shame did not prevent them, did not hold them back from asking about their religion. And from يَتَفَقْنَ فِي الدِّينِ, and learning about it, growing, establishing knowledge, understanding their religion. And we have said before, this is an example of the type of haya, that there is haya, this modesty, that is really not modesty, and that is the type of, the sense of embarrassment a person feels that prevents them from knowing what needs to be known of religion. Something that prevents them from learning something that is necessary, or prevents them from learning some khair, then that is not modesty. That is shaitan playing with you. I'm too embarrassed to ask the question, and it is necessary for you to know. Your deen requires your knowledge of this issue. Then that is not haya. That is something else. Haya is different, is other than that. All right. So here, Aisha radiallahu anha is saying that if there is yellowed, if there is still a colored discharge, then your haid is still in effect. Okay. Now, let us clarify that a female menstrual discharge does not always have to be the one color. Sometimes it can be red, sometimes it can be brownish, sometimes it can be crimson, sometimes it can be very black, Sometimes it can be more yellowish. All of it is hayd. All of it is hayd. And it may start in one color and can change along the way. In so long as there is colored discharge and it is within your menstrual time frame, your period that you are menstruating, without a period of cessation, there has not been a day or a time where it has stopped, so it is continuous, then that is the hukum of hayd. By consensus, by all schools, irrespective of the color. Once it starts becoming clear, once it is clear, that is different. Clear is the dominant characteristic with a tinge of coloring, then that is cleanliness, inshallah. That is your cervical discharge. If it is coloring, but it's still getting lighter, but it's still colored, that is still your hayd. As long as it is muttasil, it is a continuous flow without any day where it has stopped. Okay, all of it. So let us say, now sisters, there are some who have a regular flow. That means that every month, 4 days, those days regularly, that those are the days that they will have the menstrual discharge. They will menstruate. Okay, I always get tied up with this, tripped up with this term, that they will menstruate for that number of days, 4 days. But let us say that a few months later they go for 5 days or 6 days. That is still your menses. And then there are some people who do not have a regular flow, right? That they will be 4 days, 1 month, 6 days, another month, 5 days the next month, 7 days the next month, whatever. As long as it is continuous, then it is hayd. Continuous. That is the dabt. That is the dobit. That is the criteria, that it is continuous, right? Because we will explain why shortly. So if it is connected with it, all schools are in agreement that it is hayd. There's no khilaf, there's no difference of opinion. Where does the difference of opinion emerge? The difference of opinion emerges when there is a break in the continuity of the flow. So let us say you have running for 4 days, and then one whole day, 24 hours is nothing there, or 1.5 days, nothing happens, you're dry. And then it starts up again. And then you have some other coloring. There's some other discharge, colored discharge. That is where the difference of opinion is. Is that second round, you may say, or the resumption after having the cessation, is that hayd or not hayd? Is that menses or not menses? That is the ikhtilaf. That is where the difference of opinion is. It's clear, right? This because it's really clear. Yeah. If it's not clear regarding these matters that I'm discussing, please let me know, because it is necessary, it is critical for you to understand this. For you to understand it, teach your daughters, teach your mothers, teach whoever, but they have to know the stuff. Okay. It is not a optional knowledge, this one. It is a fardu ayn, as we said. You have to know it. Not for fardu ayn for the men, for the ladies. And the Jumhur, which is the Hanafis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis, they are of the view that the second discharge is not hayd. It is not the hukum of your your menses. Does not share it. That means you are praying, you are reading Quran, you are entering masjids, all right? Resume the full rights. Even if there is discharge, colored discharge, doesn't matter. It is not the hukum of hayd. Except that, right? Why? Where do they get this from? They get it from the hadith of Atiyya radiyallahu anha قالت كنا لا نعد القدرة والسفر شيئا. فيما أخرجه إمام بخاري رحمة الله عليه. And Atiyya radiyallahu anha قالت, she said, كنا لا نعد القدرة والسفر شيئا. We did not regard the yellowish discharge as anything. This is one narration. There is another narration in Abi Dawood which is more clear regarding this. On Atiyya radiallahu anha, كانت بايعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قالت كنا لا نعد القدرة والسهرة بعد الطهر شيئا. Atiyya, who took an oath of allegiance to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, said, we would not take into consideration brown and yellow fluid after purification. Meaning that after, what are the 3 signs of purification? 3 signs. What are they? The clear discharge, time, a jafaf, stopping. It's clear, it's dry. So meaning that there was a period where it was dry. There was no discharge. So that is an indicator that it has ceased. So when it tuhur, this is what it means, right? That they have seen the sign of the cessation of the flow. They stopped, they had a shower, they had their ghusl, and after that, it resumed. So Atiyya says, we did not regard this. Who was we? The Sahabiyat. The Sahabiyat did not regard this as anything. Sahih hadith. Right? And this is the stronger position, by the way. The Malikis, they say something else. The Malikis say that any discharge, as long as it is a colored discharge, within the time frame permitted for menstruation, all of it, whether there is a cessation or not cessation, all of it is haid. Okay? Why? Because they refer to the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, that the sahabiyat and those after the sahabiyat, the tabi'iyat, that they would send their cotton to Aisha radiallahu anha, and who would say that any yellowish discharge, yellow or anything other colored discharge, all of it, if you see it, do not pray. Okay? Wait until you don't see it. So this, irrespective of whether there was a pause or a non-pause, right? This is what they base it on. However, this is marjuh. This is not the stronger position. Why? Because by doing so, they have not integrated or applied the hadith of Atiyya radiallahu anha. And the Jumhur use both the hadith of Atiyya and the position of Aisha radiallahu anha, the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha. They have now combined them, and that is the stronger scriptural evidence in support of their position. And it is easier for the sisters too. It is both the stronger position, inshallah, Allah knows best, and it is the easiest position. Meaning you have stopped. You have seen an indicator of cessation, and anything after that, whatever it is, you continue your prayer. Because that's where the confusion comes for our sisters. The confusion is spotting. I have stopped, I've had a shower, but then a day later, I see some discharge. That is where the confusion comes. Do I pray or do I not pray? So the Jumhur position is easy. You pray. Simple. Right? And now we will get to the other hadith that will guide us as to how do we resume our worship. All right. Okay. So by the way, just to let you know that even though the mu'tamad, the mashhur, that the main position of the Maliki school is that whatever discharge within the allotted time, what is the allotted time for the Jumhur? 15. That Hanafis is 10, 15 is ala sahih, and the correct position is the 15 position. In any case, not all of them are of the view of the main view. Some Maliki scholars sided with the Jumhur that if there is a cessation in the flow, a sign of tuhur, then whatever comes next is as described by the Prophet ﷺ, the bleeding of the veins. It is not the bleeding of the womb. So it's described by the Prophet ﷺ. And again, so as such, we said that the hukum of stopping preventing a person from prayer is the bleeding of the menstrual bleeding. Every other type of bleeding except nifas, postpartum, post-delivery, every other bleeding, it is, what do you call this? Does not prevent you from salat. Okay? Just the two, which is nifas. Nifas is that after you have delivered, right, a baby, that bleeding, it is the hukum of haid. Same hukum. All right. Now comes hadith number 100. قال عبيد الله ابن يحيى وحدثني عن مالك عن عبد الله ابن أبي بكر عن أمته عن ابنة زيد ابن ثابت رضي الله عنه أنه بلغها أن نساء كن يدعون بالمصابيح من جوف الليل ينظرن إلى الطهر فكانت تعيب ذلك عليهن وتقول ما كان النساء يصنعن هذا. Yahya related to me from Malik, from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr, from his paternal aunt, from the daughter of Zayd ibn Thabit, that radiallahu anhu, that she had heard that women used to ask for lamps in the middle of the night to check their purity, to check whether or not their menses has finished. She would criticize them for this, saying, women never used to do this. Meaning, in the time of the companions, the sahabiyat did not have to do this. So what is the issue now? The issue is that the sister is towards the end of her menstruating cycle. And she wants to check, again, the caution they had as to not be negligent in their duties to Allah. The caution. Now you are ending the menses, you've got to be a bit more careful and exercise awareness. At what point do you stop? At what point have you stopped? Okay. So what they used to do is during the night, they used to check. They were nervous. They were anxious. They wanted to check. So they would wake up. I would ask for lights because there's no electricity at the time. They would get their oil lamps and check whether or not there is either the qasat al-bayda or there is jafaf, right? One of these two. They wouldn't have to check during the time because the time is something they would know. Doesn't matter if you are discharged or not. Time is time. Okay? So they would check these two signs. And the daughter of Zayd ibn Thabit says that the Sahabiyat did not do this. Okay? They didn't do that. Meaning the Sahabiyat, what are they? They are better in Iman, of course. They are better in fiqh and understanding of Islam. And they never used to burden themselves, by the way. The Sahaba didn't burden themselves. Just because of their knowledge of Islam and because of their commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this sense of burden did not exist. So that is an indicator of what piety looks like. When it's burdensome, when you are making it difficult for yourself, that is not piety. Right? That is not piety according to the most pious of people. Right? In any case, so meaning that you do not have to check. So at what point do you check? And this is where the fiqh comes. At that point, you check at nighttime before you go to sleep. Why? So that you would know whether or not, if it was dry before you go to sleep, you have your ghusl, so that you would know when to pray fajr, that you will pray fajr. Okay. And after you wake up, to know whether or not you would pray dhuhr and asr and whatnot. Okay. You would pray, when you wake up, to check that if you would pray fajr. So 2 times. At nighttime, you check at nighttime just in case you want to do qiyamul layl. All right. So let's say there's still some discharge. Go to sleep. Don't check again. Don't check. Go to sleep. Fajr comes. Now you might be required to pray, right? It's a Fajr time. So you need to check, do I qualify for prayer or not? So then you check. At that time, when there is a need to check. So don't check it and don't trouble yourself with checking it and don't let yourself get too overwhelmed and anxious and overthink it. But exercise caution when there is a need for it. Okay, so now dhuhr comes. What do? You check before you have to pray. Okay, So if there is discharge, continue, don't pray. If there is stopped, have your shower and pray. Okay. Asr comes, check again. If there is discharge, do not pray. If there is no discharge, take your ghusl and pray. Okay. This is towards the end of your menses, yeah? So how would you do that practically? Practically, you would, let's say the main part of your flow has subsided. So the heaviness of the flow, where there is a lot of discharge, has finished. But there is still the remnants of it. So it hasn't ceased, but there is less discharge. But it's still colored. And you are in that period time where you are checking whether or not it is finished. You can have what we call, I think, a liner or something like that. Put it in. If there is discharge, right? Okay, change it, whatever. It's there. That is your indicator whether or not you would pray. And let us say, for example, you are working, okay? So you're at work, and Dhuhr enters, and you realize that you have then finished your discharge at this time, okay? No, this is actually a matter that is discussed later in the book. All right, allow me to clarify. All right. When a person has a regular flow, that person should check that it has ended at a regular time. So let's say, for example, it's 4 days your flow. At the end, the fourth day, fourth night, you check at night time. Okay? That's when you check. You don't need to check before that. Keep it consistent at the time that you check. So let us say that it may have stopped at Dhuhr time. But because your habit is to check at night time, you are exempted from that. Because you're checking at that regular time. Because otherwise it is takalluf. Takalluf is what it's like what's takalluf? Extra trouble. You're causing yourself extra trouble, you may say. So that is the habit to check it at the right time. And that applies also to, so that is with the regular flow. When it exceeds that when it has gone past your regular timing, and now you are outside of your habit, you may say, that is when you check like we are describing now. You check for each time that you would require knowledge of it. And now let us say you are working and you realize that between Dhuhr and Asr, it has then ceased. Okay? You change Dhuhr and Asr, it's clear, right? So now you have ceased. But you are at work and you have to pray Dhuhr. Okay? Right? You are now in a state of where you pray Dhuhr. And we will cover this shortly, but I'm just so we can explain it. What do you do? So you would take your wudu. If you are able to have a shower, alhamdulillah. But that is unlikely where we are now. So you would take your wudu and you would pray your Dhuhr, right, as a substitute for tahara, given that you are unable to have the ghusl. So you are unable to have the ghusl. As soon as you get home, you have your ghusl. Okay. So you do not miss salat because you are required to pray, but you are now in a state where you are unable to do the ghusl. So just like a person who is unable to find water, right? The alternatives apply. So you can't do ghusl, you take your wudu. Right? And then you pray, and that is meeting your obligation given the circumstances that you are facing. So you have then executed your obligation, delivered on your obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You've delivered your obligation according to the circumstances that were present to you. And then when you go home, you do your ghusl and you don't repeat your salat. So then you would go back to your maghrib, do your isha at home, right? So let us say you have gone outside of the norm of your flow. You are at work or any situation where you are unable to do ghusl, but you have realized that you are now in a state of tathir, in a state of tahara. You would resume your requirements of being in a state of tahara, right? In a state of non-menses, which is your regular duties as Muslim or as a Muslimah. And when you get home, you do your ghusl. Okay. That is the time, inshallah. Okay, here we go. Hadith 101. قال وسئل مالك عن الحائض تطهر فلا تجد ماء هل تتيمم قال نعم لتتيمم فإن مثلها مثل الجنوب إذ لم يجد ماء تيمم. So this question, now the same issue, it was asked, Imam Malik was asked regarding this. He said, with the substance of which is similar to our situation. Malik was asked whether a woman whose period had finished could do tayammum to purify herself if she could not find water. And he said yes, because she is like someone in a state of major ritual impurity, junub, who, if he or she cannot find water, does tayammum. There is no difference between the schools concerning this. All right? So here, we are unable to perform the proper rites of cleanliness given the circumstance. Because we said, what are the conditions of tayammum? That the absence of water, dukhul al-waqt, the time has entered, the absence of water, and or the inability to use that water. So if you are unable, there's water, but you are unable to do it, your tayammum is sahih for you. It is valid for you. The same thing here. You know you now have resumed your obligation to pray, but you are in a situation, even though there's water, you cannot do ghusl in the office. What's this? It's not gonna happen. So now you have qualified for the alternatives. Okay? And that is to do wudu, and if there is no water at all, to do tayammum and to do your ghusl when you are able to, inshallah. Ibn Abdul Barr, in his Tamheed, he mentions that Imam Malik stated that regarding this issue, that there is ijma' on it. There is consensus, right? Meaning that nobody is of a different view, that you are not permitted to use the alternative given the absence of water or the inability to use water. Okay, one second, sorry. However, there is an exemption to this, namely that she is, I wrote it down, that she is not permitted to have intercourse with her husband until after ghusl. Unless that is an extended duration for fear of promiscuity. Okay, so meaning now, remember, a person has finished their, so the ha'id, the menstruating woman, and the junub are similar in hukum here, is that they have finished their menses, just like they are in a state of janaba. They cannot find water or they are unable to use it. Okay, but they are so they can do tayammum, but So meaning that they are in that state of permitted, they're in the state permission to perform ibadah, yeah? But they are not permitted to be intimate for the junub. Just like the ha'id is not permitted to be intimate, a person has finished their menses, they are not permitted to be intimate until after they have had their ghusl. With the exception, meaning that even if you do tayammum, you are unable to use, you're in the desert somewhere, wherever it is, there's no water, all right? You do tayammum, you do your salat, whatever it is, but you cannot be intimate with your spouse unless it is an extended duration. Let's say you're a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you're unable to still to use water, and then a person fears for their deen, then they are permitted to be intimate in that regard, if the period has been extended. So that is the exception. And that is based on the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيدِ قُلْ هُوَ أَذَنْ فَأْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيدِ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ. Right? فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ. They ask you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, concerning menstruation. Say that it is a harmful thing for a husband to have intercourse with his wife during this period. Therefore, keep away from women during menses until they are purified. And when they have purified themselves, حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ تَفَعَّلْنَ, meaning that there's two elements of purification. The person advancing to purify, and the water by which you are purifying yourself, the ritual that actually purifies you. Have purified themselves, then go on to them as Allah has ordained for you. So meaning you're allowed to be intimate only after ghusl. There is a little bit of details regarding this, which we will discuss in its right time, inshallah. But as a summary last time, because it's important, 3 signs of the ending of menstruation. One of them is the qasat al-bayda, the clear fluid. The second is the cessation of flow, it stopped flowing. The third is time. These are the 3. What else did we say? Yes, the difference, and if a person continues to flow outside of their standard duration, with that, and it's continuous, then that is still your haid. You are still menstruating, even if the color has changed. Even if it is now a yellowish color, that only when it is a clear color will you stop. All right? However, if there is a pause in your flow, so you have stopped for 1 day, 24 hours, 1.5, whatever it is, a significant, measurable time, not for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, a day, all right? You stopped, that's where the difference of opinion is. And it resumes after that, whether it is spotting, whether it is continuous after that, irrespective, as long as there has been a stop, a cessation, whatever comes next, the Jumhur, which is the Hanafis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis say it is not menses, so just forget about it. Then the Maliki say it is, in so long it is within the time. Now, and this is where I'll add, so now you are still bleeding, you have resumed your bleeding, okay? And there has been a flow, and there's been a stop, and it's a resumption now. So that is not your menses, so you pray. So how do you pray? You've got discharge. This is where having your, what do you call this? Your pads and replaceable pads is important. Because you come to salat, okay? Dhuhr is entered, you're going to go pray dhuhr, go to the bathroom, check. If there is discharge, get rid of whatever your liner, replace it with the new one, take your wudu and pray. Even if there is discharge while you are praying, it does not take effect because you have no control over that. Even if there is discharge while you are praying, it takes no effect because you have no control over it. But you would clean yourself, clean that garment, because blood and discharge on your person, on your garment, on your person is najis. It will prevent you from praying. So what do? Is you take your precautions. What happens after that is okay. Just like a person who has an open wound, is bleeding, okay? They wrap their wound, it's wrapped up, so then they pray. And if the blood then comes out after that, as long as it's not, a lot, and you cannot avoid it, that does not affect your prayer, okay? Because it's outside of your ability and capacity. You have taken precautions, but this is now beyond your capacity, and there's a principle in Islamic law: we are not required anything beyond our capacity. Only do what we can. Whatever is beyond that does not apply. We are exempted, okay? So during that time, if it resumes, go to work, have a selection of replacement liners, go to the bathroom before you want to pray, check, take your wudu, pray. Bismillah. Al-ilm indallah, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it a tathir for our sisters, a purification for our sisters, and ease it on them, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all patience and perseverance on this deen, and as He has guided us to Islam, never take it from us until we return to Him in a state of strong iman. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
الله ربي والإسلام ديني ومحمدا رسول الله